Hello and welcome today. My name is Trish Brownlee, and today we are bringing you an event called ReDraw Your Weapons, Veteran Voce. It is an event that combines spirituality in the tradition of Unitarian Universalism, along with the voices of veteran artists, writers, musicians, poets, who have all come together today to share with you their stories. Thank you to Northlake Unitarian Universalist Church in Kirkland, Washington, for hosting us and creating space to hear our voices. This recording has been altered from its original content on May 24th so that you may watch it at home and enjoy the experience and find time to reflect. Thank you for witnessing. When a child picks up a stick, it becomes anything. A witch's broom, a pirate's sword, a magic wand. We forget that any human can do their will with any object. And in the hands of the artist, the object creates. In the hands of another, the object destroys. Human beings are capable of making and remaking our world. Let us create a sanctuary for open minds and open hearts here in this sacred space today. Let us light our chalice with the common ground and the courage to hear and be heard today. My family, Aurora and Steve, are going to be our chalice lighters today. Thank you.
A soldier of the Union mustered out is the inscription on an unknown grave at Newport News beside the salt sea wave, nameless and dateless. Sentinel or scout shot down in skirmish or disastrous rout of battle, when the loud artillery drave its iron wedges through the ranks of brave and doomed battalions storming the redoubt. Thou unknown hero sleeping by the sea in thy forgotten grave, with secret shame I feel my pulses beat, my forehead burn, when I remember thou hast given for me all that thou hadst, thy life, thy very name, and I can give thee nothing in return. A Nameless Grave by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. With this Civil War imagery in our minds, appropriate to this day, welcome to Northlake Unitarian Universalist Church online. I am Lawrence Fenema, and I'm the celebrant for this morning's service. I'm pleased to be assisting our service leader, Trish Brownlee. On May 5th, 1868, General John Logan, the leader of an organization of Northern Civil War veterans, issued a proclamation calling for Decoration Day to be observed annually and nationwide. With his proclamation, Logan adopted the Memorial Day practice that had begun in the southern states 3 years earlier. The northern states quickly adopted the holiday, and here we are. Welcome. Northlake is a progressive, inclusive community made up of people with a variety of backgrounds and beliefs. We are guided by moral principles such as the belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and we draw inspiration from sources such as history, science, literature, the arts, nature, and religious traditions. We hope that you will find here a community which will feed your spirit, nurture you and your family, enable you to put your values into action, challenge you to be your best self, and provide fellowship, connection, and purpose on your spiritual path. Over the next few months, we should be offering all our meetings and activities online. In addition, we are finding ways to stay connected through our discussions and activities that we can share without being physically present. For instance, there are daily check-in times and small group meetings online every week, and you're welcome to join these. As we continue in our physical isolation from each other let us remember to stay proximal in our spirits and hearts. This week's service is a bit different from our usual. It already has been. We have several participating visitors with us, here to share and to listen, coming together in solidarity, hoping to cross what sometimes feels like a divide between the civilian and veteran communities. We offer a content warning, especially to vets and families, that some aspects of this service may be difficult, particularly after the time for all ages. While these are not graphic, some may find messages about war and loss causing unexpected reactions. Knowing this, please make the choice best for you and your family. A recording of this service will be available to view later. At the end of our service today, there will be a link in the chat box to a Veterans and Family Breakout Zoom room for any who may feel a need for space and solidarity. Please make use of the breakout room to discuss and process anything that comes up from the content of the service. We will also offer information on resources for all who wish to have it.
Hello and welcome. My name is Trish Brownlee. I'm a member of Northlake Unitarian Universalist Church, a theology student at Seattle University, and I'm also a veteran and an artist. I am here on this Memorial Day weekend, along with my friends, to have a conversation. I wish first to clarify that this is not a traditional Memorial Day service, nor is it intended to be. Today's conversation is complex and meaningful, with some aspects of a memorial, but is not its purpose. I do also wish to recognize that this service is different from what Northlake has done in past years and may not be what everyone is seeking. Tomorrow, on Monday, May 25th, Reverend Nancy will be hosting a Memorial Day Vespers at 4:30. Please check your email for more information. This service is about war and art and music and poetry and love and sadness and so much more. We pause today to pay attention and bring awareness to what has been lost with the help of veteran voices that span generations, branches of service, gender, and all types of military experiences. Thank you to those who are willing to join us today, both to witness and to share. There may be moments of discomfort in this service, and we shall have to sit in that discomfort together on the threshold of uncertainty. Know that I sometimes will feel uncomfortable too. I've spent much time on this threshold where there are more questions than answers. Earlier this week, I shut down for a while thinking about this day, constantly trying to get it exactly right, or fearful that I was going to do it wrong or not honor it properly, misrepresent someone else's experience, leave someone out. The fact is that Memorial Day is complicated and it cannot be packaged and paraded. There is no war story. There are war stories, pluralities wrapped in nuance. And war stories are also love stories and stories of fear, courage, shame, hope, and elusive peace. To share our stories with others is to be vulnerable and to walk with our own shadows. And yet we must do this hard work or nothing changes. Memorial Day itself is about remembering the dead lost from war. And in my time in the military, I photographed far too many memorials and services and funerals year after year. We cannot ask the dead to speak, but we can remember them through stories. War is complex, and through hearing the stories of veterans that are still living, perhaps we can find a way to have a few less memorials in the future. So today is about stories and honoring that they are all different, all valid. One story does not diminish anyone else's story. So I ask you to be curious enough to receive these stories, even if they're a little difficult to take in and make you feel a little uncomfortable, to really understand one another. What is lost? Sometimes we must just sit together in the dark, sometimes screaming, sometimes silent, constantly uncertain, and working to keep our hearts open. Let us take a moment now, before we begin, to just all catch our breaths.
Please join me in singing I invite you to join in and sing aloud into the space of the room you are in. Hymn 100, I've Got Peace Like a River. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain in my soul.
And now I invite all the children and the young at heart to come up to the computer screen with me and join in a story together. Our story for all ages today was created by my very dear friend, a local Seattle artist and storyteller, Travis Talbert. Travis and his wife Corey self-published their children's books and have allowed me to get around copyright and share one of them with you today for our Time for All Ages story. Today's story is called Clever Corey and the Birch Tree Dragon. Everyone knows that birch trees are white, but it was not always this way. The birch trees used to be blue until one day the sky became very thirsty and drank up all the color from the birch trees, much to the dismay of the birch tree dragon. For the birch tree dragon used the birch tree forest as camouflage. And with all the color from the birch trees gone, the birch tree dragon was exposed. One day, while a young girl named Corey was playing, she saw the birch tree dragon and she said, "Hello." "Oh no," exclaimed the birch tree dragon. "Now you will take off my head and you will steal my treasure." "I will?" asked Corey. "Yes," said the birch tree dragon. Now Corey could see that the birch tree dragon was actually afraid and she wanted to help. After thinking for a moment, Corey asked, "Does your head come off?" "No," replied the birch tree dragon. "Do you have any treasure?" Corey asked. "I don't think so," said the birch tree dragon. "Then why would I do those things?" asked Corey. "Because that's what everyone else would do," replied the dragon. Well, I'm not going to do what everyone else would do, exclaimed Corey. I'm going to do what I believe is the right thing to do. So I'm not going to take off your head, and I'm not going to steal any treasure. Oh, thank you, bellowed the birch tree dragon. But without the color of the trees to hide me, I am still afraid. I understand if you are afraid, but I think people will want to be your friend more than that they will want to hurt you. However, if you have to hide, you can hide in the sky, said Corey. You are very clever, Corey, said the birch tree dragon, and then flew into the sky. Then clever Corey knew from that moment on that if she was respectful of others and stayed true to her beliefs, she could grow up and do anything she put her mind to. Even fly. Now, since I am an artist, I'm going to pause just a minute here because I have to point out the artwork in this book. Everything is made of cut paper. The clouds, the people, every tiny little scale of the dragon. The birch trees are made of paper. The ground is made of paper. Even the tiny little horizon line where the sky and the earth meet are made of paper. Clever Corey herself is made of paper. Thank you again, Corey and Travis, for letting me share this story today. If you want to own this story or more of Travis's books, they're on Amazon and breadandbarleybooks.com. Also, right now, they gave us a cool Clever Corey activity paper doll set that you can print and color right at home. I actually have one more story that I'm going to take a moment to share with you today. It's a story about a song, and it's a well-known song unique to the U.S. military, but I found that the origins of the story are not quite so well known. This song is known as Taps. It is a bugle call that originated in earlier forms since the beginning of the U.S. military before the Civil War. Taps originally began as a signal to extinguish lights, the end of day. It is the call now sounded at funerals, wreath-laying ceremonies, and memorial services. Now, the story of Taps has different origins about its creation, but the one I know was told to me by my mentor, Brian James, who has nearly 30 years of service and is currently a crew chief at Portland Air Base. I met Brian's family when I was 20 years old, and I was in the Air Force as a very young airman, and his family became my family. The story Brian told me is that Taps originated during the Civil War. There was a boy from the North who joined the Confederate Army. He was injured one night, lying on the battlefield, crying out for help. And a captain in the Union Army could hear the boy crying, and he went looking for him. When the Union captain found the body of the boy, he realized it was his son. And the father found the notes to Taps in the boy's pocket of his Confederate uniform. Now, I don't know if this story is accurate, but I do know that this is a story that it's endured. And I believe that the story gets retold is because it accepts that love and war are not separate, but deeply connected and confusing and complex and hard. And sometimes there are no speeches for it. And so music steps in to create a space to remember. We come into community to honor the time we have together, sharing that which brings us both happiness and sorrow. In the Unitarian Universalist community, this sharing is known as joys and concerns, and it is a time of sharing that we wish to celebrate and that which weighs on our hearts. In this particular service, as we are taking a moment to listen, to really hear our veterans, listen to their stories, experience their music, see their creation, and consider all they carry in their hearts. We are also honoring our lost. So, in light of today, I will simply add one stone to the bowl for the gratitude that we have left unspoken, and a second for those sorrows left unsaid today. I will add a third stone for those that we've lost to war, and a fourth for all those lost in our community. While we do not all understand the experience of war, we do all understand loss. So to create a space to honor all our loved ones lost, we are embracing technology this year to create a virtual memorial board. And this board will be accessible to all, so you can see it and add to it and share it anytime now through Tuesday. We are now moving into the performances and arts portion of the service, where content, while not explicit, may be difficult for some. As we are in a multi-generational virtual setting and children may be present, use your judgment on whether to continue watching live or review the recording later before choosing to share with children. As a teacher who has taught in K-12 schools for the last 6 years and a mother myself, I understand we all have hard choices to make of how and when to have difficult conversations with our children about the realities of our world. I have found the arts to be a great way to begin conversations, especially hard conversations, with people of all ages. Thank you for being here today and for witnessing. I would now like to welcome Jules Vaquera to share her story and play her music for us. Thank you, Jules, for joining us today from San Antonio, Texas.
Hello there, guys and gals and non-binary pals. My name is Jules. I am a friend of Trish's. We are both members of About Face Veterans Against the War. We met at the convention last year, and I got to make some awesome visual art with her as well. But I am also a singer and a songwriter. I write music with a group called Soldier Songs and Voices. They are a group who gives free guitars to military veterans and active duty, and they also teach songwriting classes. We have chapters all over the world in Australia and in many of the places. We have several chapters in the United States as well, and they basically use music to heal trauma. And so I went to their first retreat 3 years ago. I've been to 4 of them total, so it's actually 4 years ago. And it absolutely changed my life. Being able to use music to work through my trauma has, it's helped me heal more than I can even say. And Trish said, thank you for being witness. And I thank you for being my witness for this. So this is a song called Carpenter's Hands. How about that hammer that built a house for a family in need? And the wrench that kept the water bill down so they could eat. What if the tools they had a choice? Would they do it again? What if the tools they had a choice? Would they do it again? Oh, oh. What if the hammer was held in different hands? What if the wrench was covered in the blood of an innocent man? What if the tools they had a choice? Would they do it again? What if the tools they had a choice? Would they do it again? I placed my trust in the wrong carpenter's hands. What have I done? I knew how to kneel, but now I've got to stand. Now I know I've got a choice. I finally understand. Now I know I've got a choice. I'll never kneel again. Oh. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules. I get chills. Okay. All right. Today is a place for storytelling. Now, I'm a veteran and I have my own story, but to be honest, after leaving the military in 2011, I wanted to forget that. I didn't claim military benefits for 5 years, and I didn't tell anyone I had been in the military. I went back to school, I finished my BFA, and I began teaching art. And I created art about music and colors and songs. And underneath it all, something started to get a little better, but something else was also beginning to stir. I was then accepted into an MFA program, and it was there that I met Dr. Sarah Sentilles, my critical theory professor and a civilian. And she was the first person who ever challenged me to actually make art about my military experiences. But I think it was more than that. Sarah was also the first person who had not been in the military who really wanted to know my story, who cared enough to ask. And looking back on it, trying to understand why my connection with Sarah for the past 6 years has been so important, I think that's what really mattered to me the most. Sarah cared. She cared enough to really listen to me despite our very different understandings of the world, our different experiences, and our differing belief systems. Today's stories are told through song and art and poetry, and they are being heard by those of you who do not share these military experiences. But those of you who don't, you have still showed up today and you've cared enough to listen. Listening is really just what is needed the most sometimes. It's not parades or perfect speeches, just someone who cares and who listens and who sees me for who I am and says that is okay right now. And while my story today is also about the military, it's also about Sarah, my friend, my mentor, my teacher, who took the time to write a book called Draw Your Weapons, a book that shares the stories of a World War II conscientious objector and also the story of an active duty soldier from the current Iraqi war. And this book in some ways mirrors my own relationship with Sarah and how we are all a part of someone else's story. Because while Sarah and I didn't agree on many things, she still wanted to know my real story, not some ideal story of who I was supposed to be. Art understands. Art helps us understand. Art helps us deal with and process and share experiences and emotions. And art is also the place to begin really hard conversations, even if they're deeply based in core disagreements about how the world works. Regardless of your belief systems or how you feel about war, you are here today and you are listening. And that matters. I'm a veteran. I think that title is still hard to claim, a label that does not quite belong to me, and a uniform that never quite fit right anyway. And to be honest, I just sat on a computer thousands of miles away, photographing funerals to parades, and for far too long I played my part so easily, making images to make them believe that this is what it takes to be free. Look how cool all these toys are. Just forget they were created to make someone bleed. See, you corrupted my gift and turned it against me. My own manufactured images blinding me. My own hands creating moral injury. Until the day I woke up one day and I couldn't see anything of left of who I used to be. And now I wonder, can you even be injured from a war in which you've never been? See, I've never been to war, and that guilt, that's a scrawl for another day, because if you were not there, you should not care. That's another lie we swallow every day, because it took this long for those words you preach, loyalty, integrity, to truly realize what they mean. See the curtain? That's been pulled back now, and now I see that you are only a machine that runs on greed, that takes everything and then trains me to believe that it's me who's weak and wrong. It's just the truth I seek. See, what's left to do now that I can see? What's left to do now that I can see? I look at him, I'll stand beside him, and I'll help him up, because I won't forget the day that he finally asked for help and all you replied was good luck. I'm taking it all back now. I'll speak for those still trapped in silence. I'll rescue my gift and make my truth seen. See, I'm reclaiming my voice today, and I'm also going to remake the people's history. I read this poem in graduate school, and you'll get these calls that come out for veteran artwork and veteran poetry. And this just gets rejected from it. It's been rejected a lot from books and magazines that are meant to honor veterans. You see that there's this version of a veteran and of memorials and Memorial Day that people understand. They say this way to do Memorial Day is okay, and this way is not. And it's the way that's okay, the way it's good, is very red and white and blue and ceremonial. And it has lots of flags and stone monuments and parades. And it's beautiful. And some people need it. And if you need it, that is wonderful, and you should take it and own it and say, this is Memorial Day, and this is the right way to do it, and this is how we honor the dead. But for me, I'm sorry, honoring the dead does not mean that you keep waging war. Honoring the dead is, you say, they died for peace, and where is the peace? Because I don't have it. Those types of ceremonies, I'm not trying to take them away from the people who need them. But if I'm telling you my story, those ceremonies do not mean much to me, aside from just photographic memories that are permanently captured in my mind every time I had to photograph them in a uniform and stand beside somebody's wife or son or daughter and listen to their stories about the person they loved, because that's what Memorial Day is about, remembering a person, a human being, and not a war. There are all kinds of veterans, dead and living, with hundreds of war stories. People like the men in Sarah's book, and the people that are here today, watching, listening, and then the artists and the musicians and poets, and veterans who are brave enough to join me in saying what might not be the most popular opinion on Memorial Day, but it is still valid. Nobody's story is more valid than somebody else's. Veterans that don't fit into this over-glorified concept of what it means to serve in the military walk around every day silent. And there are veterans who have stayed silent for too long. And there are veterans who died, and we honor them today, and we recognize that they always will stay silent. There are veterans who survive wounds only to die from illnesses caused by chemical exposure in war years later. There are veterans who survive war zones only to lose the battle with themselves. We have beautiful sculptures and artwork created as memorials meant to honor war and those who fight them all over this country. There are shrines to memories on the DC wall, and in the battlefields of Gettysburg, and in the walls of the Alamo. And all these memorials are created with good intentions, but what is it they really memorialize? Remember the person, honor the human being, not the war. This is what we must remember. I look at this artwork today, I hear these songs, and I read the stories of those trying to deal with their own experiences. And while it is hard and it is dark and it is heavy, it is also full of light, connection, solidarity, understanding, and love. Love that spans across ideals and belief systems and generations, and love that can listen. And love that will say, I will get down with you in the dark. I will not try to draw a silver lining. I will not try to tell you how it should be or how you should feel or you should be, but I will love you and I will be here with you in the dark. And that is beautiful. Art and song and voice are far more than simply dark memories and memorials. They are love. See, it is true that art memorializes. It can help preserve something in our minds and trigger a memory, but if we are not careful, those memories can become nothing more than souvenirs, surface level trinkets that we don't take the time to reflect on. See, we forget. Photographs are meant to make us remember, to honor, but they can do damage, just like memorials. They can stand there against the sky, forgotten while war goes on. I made this photograph. I wanted to be a photographer to show people what happened in war, to somehow make a difference. Maybe I was naive then. I was young. I was 18. So I thought by becoming a photographer in the military and photographing war, that it might be some kind of way of helping to achieve peace for humans. Instead, I would come to learn that my photographs like this one would be instead used to memorialize and celebrate a war. This photograph on the cover of this book was taken on Fort Bragg in an exercise. The orange blank fire adapters that keep these weapons as no more than props in a training mission were photoshopped out and put on the front of this book to make it appear to be in a war zone. See, I make those photos. I made them for years, but I had no control over how they were going to be used, and war still goes on. From Sarah's book, quoting Susan Sontag, war tears, war rips open, eviscerates, war scorches, war dismembers, war ruins. A photograph says, look at this violence. Look at what this bullet or drone has done. Look, and let's stop it. But the fact is, there is no guarantee about the kind of response a photograph of atrocity will give rise to. A call for peace, a cry for revenge, or simply the bemused awareness, continually restocked by photographic information that terrible things happen. Now more than ever, we have access to artwork and images of war and loss, but in many ways, that artwork, photography, and video can only tell part of a story from one point of view. And often that point of view is glorious. The truth is, it's far more complicated than that. We must be willing to hear many sides of stories, many perspectives, if we are to truly understand our own place in war stories. Because no matter one's stance on war, we live in a country that continues to wage it, and as a result, you are part of these war stories. And art has always been there to demonstrate this, such as Picasso's Guernica, and Otto Dix's work, The Match Seller, depicting the tragedy of war, the lonely aftermath, pleading in paint with those in power to stop it. Veterans have never stopped creating art and music to share their stories, and it goes on to this day. I've personally collected many of these works, and I would like to take a moment now to share some of my collection with you. I met many of these veteran artists along my own difficult journey of photographing memorial services and funerals. I was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened. However, war stories and memorials go back generations in my own family. It took till I was an adult to find that out, though. I understood that there was some sort of pain, but I never knew what it was. My grandfather was a medic in World War II. I never heard his story. My uncle, I never got a chance to meet, whose granddaughter is here. Thank you. He died from cancer in 1979 as a result of exposure to Agent Orange in the Vietnam War. He cannot tell his story. My former partner died as a result of injuries, physical and invisible, that led to addiction nearly 10 years after an IED blast in Iraq that is still a war zone. He cannot tell his story. My husband spent multiple deployments in the same war zone in Afghanistan between 2004 and 2016, and he still struggles to tell his story. Some of the people I love the most in the world who are watching this service right now carry their own war stories that they seldom share. And while some of the veterans here today come from other areas of war, and some things are different, what remains is that war goes on and memorials continue, and pain keeps moving through generations of those who fight and those who just find themselves in the way of the ghosts of war. Memorial Day is not glorious or heroic in my story. It is confusing and sad and maddening. And I spend time trying to figure out how to honor correctly those who have died, either in war or later as a result of war. And I don't know what to do. Sarah said, make art. So I made art. And then I learned how to make paper from forgotten military uniforms. And later, I learned how to use art as its own form of medicine to give witness to the others' lives so that they no longer have to carry their stories alone. They should not have to carry them alone. I am a caretaker of their stories, and these people in return have trusted me to share them with you today. War is a creation by humans. War is made. It can be unmade. And this is what these artists and writers and musicians and veterans are doing with their work today, redrawing their weapons to remake their experiences as they try to remake their own worlds and the world we are in. We have forgotten that to listen to someone else earnestly does not require that we agree. It does not require shared experience. Sarah and I often didn't agree on anything, but she listened, she cared, she sat in the dark beside me and held my hand, and as a result, she helped me remake my world. Remaking a world requires poets, artists, singers, soldiers, preachers, prisoners, all of us. We make more memorials to honor war and suffering and loss. I hold on to the hope that we can remake a world where we no longer need them. In a moment, we'll hear from LJ Bowens, joining us from Fayetteville, North Carolina, followed by another performance from Jules. Sometimes we have no answers, and it is there on that threshold when we sing, where we dance, why we create, and sometimes when we can only listen.
Hello, everybody. Depending on what side of the country you're on, it's either good morning or good afternoon. So I'm very happy to be here. My name is LJ Bowens, originally from Detroit, Michigan, now residing in Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg. And I'm a military veteran. I did 7.5 years in the military, been deployed twice. And from there, I've been kind of going back and forth from trying to figure out my purpose and my journey. I've always been an artistic person, but once I got into the military, I kind of dwelled away from it. And it's funny because the military brought me back to it, and it also opened up a lot more things that I can do with my voice, because with my voice, I feel that it's very needed in the time and society that we're in, especially currently being a veteran. And with all voices, a lot of voices get silent, not by our own choice, but sometimes based on the situation that we are in, that muzzles it down and pushes it down to the point that we forget we even have one. So what I ended up doing was, when I got out of the military, I ended up falling back into my arts, ended up falling into open mics, and ended up just started writing poetry again. And from there, I've been blessed to do a lot of things with the craft, especially when it comes to speaking about veterans and helping veterans in itself. As of right now, being a spoken word artist, I've also became a motivational speaker, and I also do writing workshops with the Wounded Warrior Project within this region. So it's been a blessing to help other vets just like myself find their voice within writing, because one of the biggest things I learned from one of my mentors is that if no one will ever listen to you, then the page will, because you have nothing but a pen and a pad to get all your thoughts out. And the arts helps keep you sane, especially with me. I've had a situation back in my past where, even being a military veteran, even getting out of the service, I literally felt like I had no one to talk to. And it's hard as a veteran, and it's hard as a male veteran to speak to anyone when you need help, because you're always told to man up and do certain things. And with that, you become so dependent on that thought that you don't want to ask for help, that you let yourself get into a situation. So this poem that I'm about to do for you guys, it was very hard for me to write. And the reason it was very hard for me to write was because I had to relive a past that I went through. And I also came to a point where I met a veteran soldier who was actually homeless in Savannah, Georgia, playing a saxophone on a river walk. And it's kind of like a combination of both his story and my story. But I've always felt that with a lot of things that go on, we always honor the vets. But Memorial Day, like Trish said, is very confusing, because when it comes to Memorial Day, people confuse the way that you want to support them. And a lot of people take this time to enjoy their cookouts and going to the beach. And sometimes you'll have some vets' name get immortalized, while other vets, a lot more vets, names blow in the wind and you never get to hear about them, and they end up falling to the wayside, especially if they're homeless. So this poem I've always tried to escape, but I felt it needed to be said a lot more once I grew more into appreciating the reason why it needed to be written in the first place. Left. Left, right. Left, right, left. They say to always practice your cadence because practice makes perfect. Left. Left behind a lot of things to get to where I am. Right. Right choices is what I thought were being made as people's eyes transform into escalators because they can't seem to make less stairs. Left. Father said that the military can turn boys into men. Right. But never fully explain how some path can come to the end of the road. Left, right. Father knew this cadence very well. Once was a decorated soldier who now became a shell-shocked replica of his past. So these steps are now embedded in his brain. The voices that are now starting to climb up his vertebrae are telling him the best way to hide from his problems is to run. So he left, right, left a son wanting to go overseas to fight the war just to come right back when the war is over. But when you're exposed to the same crap as your father, how do you expect not to have a mindset to match? Left the old me thousands of miles back in the dirt, right, to be back in my own country, now living in the dirt. Left a war-torn country with patriotism as my job, right, to patriotism becoming a painful reminder that it may not get you a job once it is done with you. Right to a bottle to drink away my sorrows, left with the empty bottle to remind me of promises and commitments unfulfilled. Excuse my forgetfulness. Seems that my mind is starting to leave me like all of my family has. Now I'm left without something to go in, but I'm going right into my own clothing because I can't get mad if I put this crap on myself. Right, left with letters of merit, but nothing is right when these medals don't get you an app. I swear, if I can afford a smartphone, that may be my best way to keep my hands on a lot of them. Left standing in the road asking for change, right in front of you standing in the road with my hands out asking you for change. Excuse me, is your name Isaac Hayes? Because your song must be playing in the background if you think you could just walk on by. Left fighting wars like I can no longer win when my right to freedom of speech seems null and void. Why put a price on truth if people choose they can't afford to pay attention? So what is there left to do when everything you loved and fought hard for has turned its back on you? You pray that death is right around the corner because it can come so easy. Left. Left. Right. Left, right, left. They say to always practice your cadence because practice makes perfect, especially when there's nothing left. Right? Left. Thank you.
Hello, it's me again. LJ, I love that piece so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have one more song for you. This is called In the Dark. It's about the fact that I feel a lot of shame because of my service, and that leads me towards self-destructive behavior, but trying to rise above it, you know? The look of fear on your face is reminiscent of some dark, dark nights. You can't ignore the nagging voice. It tells you that you deserve to suffer. So over and over into the fire, into an endless wave of destruction. You can turn on the light and you can drown it out. You can try to deny it, but you still gonna hear its voice. In the dark. Sometimes it can control the volume. Sometimes it has a mind of its own. Or it takes a break, gives you a little peace, but it never seems to be gone for too long. So over and over, into the fire, into an endless wave of destruction. You can turn on the light, or you can drown it out. You can try to deny it, but you still gonna hear its voice. That voice has made its case a million times, but it might not be right. It's just a passenger in your thoughts. You know it's probably telling lies in the dark. You can turn on the light and you can drown it out. You can try to deny it, even though you hear its voice in the dark. Thank you guys so much. I have to go. I have class. But I love you guys and thank you for being witness.
Thank you for sharing your stories. And thank you for witnessing and listening. Thank you for willingly standing together on this threshold today. May we all embrace our night and our light, because to deny that our darkness exists is to risk becoming most vulnerable to it. May we all embrace each other in love and acceptance, aware of our frailty and our failures. May we all find a way to own our own story. Today, we extinguish the flame of this chalice, but not the light within us, nor the shadows that walk with us. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or fire of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again. Doreen Wallace is joining us from New York, New York, and he is going to close us with a song. In light, night, and love. Thank you, Doreen.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me to this, Trish. I cried twice. So yeah, did not expect that. Trish and I know each other through About Face. And yeah, I had no idea what you meant when you said this wasn't a traditional memorial service, and now I totally get it. Really, really amazing. Just hearing everybody's stories. Also, I do want to, talk offline, but LJ, I'm very sure I've absolutely heard that poem before. Somebody read it at a veterans event last holiday season, like Christmas time. So I'm just curious if you've had it published, but we can talk about that later, because I was like, yeah, I don't know, that was mind blowing. But yeah, so anyways, I'm a Army veteran, 10 years, and I now live in New York City, where I'm a composer and a pianist, and I'm also finishing an internship right now in music therapy. My specialty is in trauma, grief, and bereavement. Memorial Day, we have the sort of picturesque version where we have the barbecues and the picnics, and it's, ever since I'll say my third year of service, Memorial Day stopped being so fun. Yeah, I'm a pianist by trade, and I was a pianist for the military. Played way too many funerals. I've really seen way too many dead bodies. Uh, yeah. One last comment before we get into this. So, part of what we learn in music therapy is that art creates neural passageways into consciousness that other realms do not. So it's like, if you think of it like this, the scientist's role is to explore the observable universe, and the philosopher's role is to explore the mental spaces and the ideological realm. The contemplative's role is to explore the spiritual self and the spirituality. The artist's role is to explore consciousness in ways that that the other three cannot. We explore the emotional realm. We explore the deeper, personal, nonverbal realm. I work with a lot of patients who are suffering from severe trauma. Specifically, right now, I'm working with Holocaust victims, Holocaust survivors, and it's music is able to tap into realms that that no other form of therapy can. Yeah, I just I'm blown away by this entire experience. So thank you all so much for being here. Veterans, thank you for your service. I'm saying this from a very sincere place, because I know exactly what y'all are going through today and tomorrow especially. So yeah, this I'm gonna play two songs. I'm a classical musician, so we say pieces. Whatever. Everybody can laugh. But my grandfather was a World War II veteran, served in Guadalcanal. He was a medic. He passed away in 2016. Every Memorial Day, his image just passes in my mind nonstop. He's, no offense to any other veteran, but he's my favorite veteran. He's my hero. He always will be. And these were two pieces that were performed at his funeral. So whenever I play them, my grandpa comes back to life for me. So thank you all for your service. Thank you all for participating. And have a very serious Memorial Day filled with contemplation and memory. So thank you.